I'm Haley B. Miller, and this is Ohio Politics Explained, a podcast where you give us 15 minutes and we give you all the news you need to sound smart and impress your friends. Welcome back to Ohio Politics Explained. Today is all about Tuesday's election. We'll break down some of the most interesting local results across Ohio and what the national landscape may look like in 2026. Joining me today is Anthony Shoemaker.
Hi, Haley.
So, as we all know, there weren't any statewide issues on the November 4th ballot, but voters across the state cast ballots for mayoral races, city council, school levies, and more. And we ended up with a lot of interesting results. In Cincinnati, Mayor Aftab Purval defeated Vice President J.D. Vance's brother in his re-election bid. A Columbus progressive lost his race for city council against a more establishment Democrat, even though he won the actual district. Democrats also picked up some seats in suburban races. There were some interesting developments in Dayton and Youngstown, too. I'm going to let you take that one as our resident Dayton expert.
Yeah, I mean, in Dayton, Democratic Mayor Jeffrey Bims, who has been in office for 4 years, he was the mayor who replaced Nan Whaley when she left and was on the school board for a long time, was defeated by fellow city commissioner Shanice Turner-Sloss. And in Dayton, you know, it's Democrat versus Democrat. It's very kind of a similar situation to New York City on a smaller scale, obviously, where you kind of have a Democratic Party establishment going up against a more grassroots Democratic machine. Shanice had, you know, a lot of young people behind her, neighborhood people behind her. And it's going to be interesting to see what she's able to do because the Democratic Party still has 3 of those 5 seats. And then Shanice and Commissioner Darryl Fairchild have 2. But they're all Democrats. They're just Democrats with different philosophies.
Interesting. So what do you make of Ohio's local results overall? I know Democrats in the state were patting themselves on the back this week.
Yeah, I mean, not much in what happened in Ohio tells me much about what's going to happen next year. I mean, Mayor Purval dominated down in Cincinnati. I think he got like more than 80% of the vote against J.D. Vance's half-brother. Cleveland
Mayor Justin Bibb also got reelected.
Mayor Bibb up there. And, you know, the one thing, too, statewide that I thought was interesting was the property tax issues. You know, we've heard all this talk about people are tired of property taxes and we want reform for property taxes, but voters came out and supported most of the property tax issues on the ballot.
Yeah, I mean, there were a ton of levies for schools, mental health services, police. The Columbus Zoo had a levy. Most of them passed, as you alluded to, including 2/3 of school levies. I mean, did that surprise you, given all of this backlash against property taxes?
It did surprise me a little bit because, you know, when we go out into the community or we're talking to, like, readers, people are always complaining about property taxes. My property taxes are too high. So I did kind of think that we might have more of a mixed bag or see more property tax issues fail. But, you know, the Columbus Zoo issue passed. We saw school levies pass. People came out to support it. And I think 1/3 of the districts asking for new money, even increases, passed.
Yeah, one district I was watching with interest is Westerville City Schools. They did not put a property tax levy on the ballot. They put a school income tax on the ballot this year because they had a property tax levy fail last year. I talked to the superintendent and she said, you know, after last year, they heard from a lot of people, especially seniors, about how challenging rising property taxes can be. And with school income taxes, they don't always have to tax retirement income. They don't tax Social Security. That ended up passing this week. And I'm curious if we'll see more schools do that as property taxes continue to become more unpopular.
Yeah, I think that is a good issue to watch because, you know, we are hearing cases where, you know, you have especially older folks who've paid for their houses, but the value of those homes go up, their property taxes go up, and they've got a tax bill that's, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars that they can't pay anymore, and they're not working. So I could see that the income tax route might be more attractive to some people.
So you mentioned New York City, and that mayoral race, Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani beat former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo We also saw Democrats win some big races for governor in New Jersey and Virginia. And it really didn't take long for people to paint their own picture of these results and what they mean for Ohio in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of similar to Trump's first go-round. In 2017, Democrats had a good year. And then in 2018, when the midterms came along, there was a Democratic wave across the country. It didn't hit in Ohio necessarily, but, Nancy Pelosi became Speaker. They took the House. But the 2018 election was one of the closest in Ohio's recent history. We saw a split there with Sherrod Brown won the Senate race by, I think, 7 or so, and Mike DeWine won the governor race by less than 4. So it was tighter. So when Donald Trump is not on the ballot, it will be interesting to see if we see another tight race in Ohio.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, Democrats were feeling good this week, not just about their gains in local races, but about what they saw in other states. And, I think they're hoping that this backlash against the Trump administration will continue to grow. But you also saw Republicans pretty much instantly linking Democrats, including former Senator Sherrod Brown, to Mamdani. I think there's going to be a lot of messaging next year about how Democrats are aligning with socialists, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the message, is the Democratic Party is moving in the socialist direction, the big S word that scares a lot of people. But, the New York race, you saw young turnout through the roof. They had more than 2 million voters, which is really high, show up. And, we all know that the cost of living in New York has gotten out of hand. And obviously New York is different than a lot of American cities. But some of those pocketbook issues that people in New York are dealing with are the same things young people around the country are dealing with and young people in Ohio are dealing with.
Yeah, I asked Ohio Democratic Party Chair Kathleen Clyde this week if they see any lessons from the New York mayoral race in particular. And she said, Ohio and New York are very different places. I think suggesting that Ohio perhaps wouldn't put forward a candidate like Mamdani, but she said that affordability was a big issue in his race and is going to be a big issue that they hit home next year. Cost of groceries, healthcare costs increasing. I think we're going to hear a lot of that. And that's always kind of been Sherrod Brown's bread and butter. That's kind of where he's always centered his messaging. Well,
and it kind of goes back, I know I'm old, but the 1992 Bill Clinton the message, it's the economy, stupid. And that still holds true. And it's it seems like Democrats lose when the conversation is on culture wars and some of the more divisive and distracting issues. And I think that if Democrats stay focused on the economy and focused on pocketbook issues, they'll probably have better results.
And I think that's also why we heard Vivek Ramaswamy, the likely Republican nominee for governor, coming out saying this week, we got our butts kicked. Republicans got our butts kicked. He used a different word that I cannot say on here. And he said,
podcast.
And, he said Republicans really have to focus on this message of affordability if they, don't want to struggle in the midterms.
Right. And, Donald Trump's voters show up when Donald Trump is on the ballot, and he's not on the ballot next year here in Ohio. I mean, Ohio is a red state. Don't get me wrong. But if Democrats ever were going to stand a chance, the off cycle of a Republican unpopular possibly Republican president is when they tend to do well. Like I said, they won the Senate race in 2018 in Ohio. We're close in the governor race. And then the last time you had a Republican president midterm election was 2006 with President Bush, and Democrats won almost all the statewide offices that year in Ohio.
And one more thing before you go. In non-election news, Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno made headlines this week after he admitted to collecting the VIN numbers on Senate Democrats' cars. He said he did this to make a point about car affordability and safety, but Nevada Senator Jackie Rosen accused him of being creepy.
That is the weirdest story of the week. The video is worth a watch.